Badger Army, welcome to today's show. Today we're going to start off a new segment, a new vlog on the channel where we review the Beano, and hopefully we'll be able to do this every week. Now, the Badger used to be into the Beano years and years ago in the 1990s and the 1980s, and I grew up reading this comic, and it is probably one of my favourite comics of all time. Yes, I do love the Avengers and Venom and all the horror comics and all the spooky stuff, but when you cut it down to it and you said to me, well, what comic could you have every week if you only had one that would make you smile, make you laugh and have loads of fun with really over-the-top sceners? I'd probably pick the Beano. It's fun, and I've really enjoyed getting Badger Jr. into it now. He's been reading probably since like the probably like the 3000th issue or something. So here or there, he's probably got like hundreds of them now, and it's insane, isn't it? How many different comics you can get every week. So let's roll into this little segment. Right, so obviously Minnie the Minx is the cover star this week, and she has been for the past couple of weeks, I believe. They've started a new section now where the different contestant winner can be the boss of the company. I think that's great. And of course you've got the Bash Street Kids up to mischief. Now, the Bash Street Kids were one of my favourite sections of all time because they just sort of have this excellent way about them where bash ball they're just enjoying this over-the-top madness, and everything seems to always go wrong but always right. And that poor teacher, you know, that poor teacher, why does he put up with all this stuff for goodness knows how many years? It's insane, because we all know that Beano Town is in some sort of weird time warp where Dennis is allowed to age, Minnie the Minx is allowed to age and have children and all this sort of thing, but no one else apparently. It's so bizarre. You've got obviously the very inappropriate fatty character taking over the goal. You've got an opportunity to be in the Beano yourself now, or have a comic strip made of yourself, and I think that's great. They do seem to be going along the viewer, or I should say reader participation route, modernising it in a fun way like that, where, you know, if you sign up to it or if you put a competition in, you can then become part of the show, and I think that's great, isn't it? So like, and you've got these new sections here where you can be in Snack Dookie, where you can fill it in and work out maths problems and stuff like that involving crisps. And I think that's great because obviously, you know, instead of using numbers, they're using pictures, but the pictures represent numbers and all that sort of stuff and all that jazz. Now, what I find interesting is that they've sort of done a soft reboot on Dennis again, where it's now called Dennis and Nasha Unleashed, to tie in with the comic book. I don't think they've changed any of the retcon thing that they did where the old Dennis is now the new Dennis's dad. I don't think they've changed that. If anything, they've embraced that because of the comic book and the cartoon show. Obviously, if you're old like me, you remember that Dennis's original dad was a balding man who liked to whack him on the bum with a slipper. Slightly grumpy indeed. Yeah, so you've got all these sorts of stuff where you've got Nasha being able to sort of walk there, which is unusual, and I think this is great, you know, being chased after by a swan. Fantastic. Ah, look, here you go, you've got a nice little competition entry thing there. I think that's great. Get people drawing. They've got to create their own planet, which I think is interesting. Now, Calamity James. Calamity James is one of my favourites, but also one of my ones where I go, really? Oh! And it reminds me of like stuff like Mr. Magoo and those sort of old-fashioned, inappropriate ones where, you know, you think, you know, I'm not a snowflake or anything, please don't bear that in mind. well, do bear that in mind, I should say. I'm not a snowflake, so when I read things about this poor boy who ends up getting bashed, smashed, crashed, electrocuted, every single thing bad happening to this poor boy, you think, is this funny? Should I be laughing? I don't know. One of the newer characters, Dangerous Dan, Beano Town's top spy, I think is really interesting. Sort of going down the Men in Black sort of route. You know, what if a super spy was a child and all that sort of stuff. I think that's good. Spy Kids and all that stuff has always been popular, even in the 90s and stuff like that. So I think that's really good. What I do find interesting nowadays is that Nasher gets his own comic strip, and I think that's great. You know, you get to see a different side to the story, and you get to see the original Dennis getting up to mischief with his dog, and I think that's great. You know, so the different things they've done there is great. You know, and also you get to see Dennis's original mum, but older, and I think that's nice that they're having some sort of weird time warp continuity, and they're trying their best. And they did even do a lot of references to that sort of thing, and a partial reason behind it in the 4000th issue. Lots of time travel, which is very interesting, isn't it? And of course, you've got the headliner, Minnie the Minx. She has to be one of my favourites. And one of my favourite versions of Minnie the Minx is Dark Minx, where she dresses up as Batman and saves the day. I think that's fantastic. And it's really interesting the way they've done that, incorporated that sort of stuff. And of course, you've got the interloper. You've got the one surviving character from the Dandy, pretty much. I mean, there might be more, but I'm not sure. I was never really a reader of the Dandy, but I do remember Banana Man, and I think I've read bits and pieces of it because of him. And I think Banana Man is probably the most successful, you know, Dandy character, next to, of course, Desperate Dan, where it sort of came from, Dandy Dan, you know. And I believe that they do roll him out once a year for a special. I'm not sure though. I think they do. But yeah, General Blight and of course Banana Man getting up to all sorts of mischief. Now I am probably on my own on this one, but I enjoy seeing Eric in the cartoon as well, not just Banana Man. I love to see the two sides to the character. So I do hope they bring that back a bit more, where you get to see Eric with adventures with the other guys in the Beano universe, with sort of Banana Man helping out, just like they do in the cartoon really. That had a better balance of character stuff, you know. But this always just seems to just see Banana Man lately. I'm hoping they have a nice little reference. You've got Roger the Dodger. There's a lot more comedic trick style characters. You've got Tricky Dicky, and I think there's a new one now that does pranks and stuff, the girl. So that's pretty interesting. And you've got like a reader's wall. I think that's interesting as well, and lots of fun little jokes. I think that's hilarious. And of course, you've got Inquisitive Ivy, which I think is great, which is once again one of these sort of viewer things. You know, I really enjoy the fact that they're bringing in the readers to these things, and I think that's a positive step, and it really makes it more interesting for the reader. I think that brings them into wanting to read it. I know when Badger Jr. was in the Beano, he was totally excited, and we had to get 1 billion copies of that issue. So I think that's a really interesting way forward to sell magazines and comics, is to have a bit more reader, you know, sort of like, you know, you know what I mean, where they're sort of involved in it. I think that's great. Reader involvement, yes. So there you go. That is this week's Beano. Let me know if you want to see more reviews of the Beano, or look-ats, as it were, each time. And I really enjoyed looking at this. I'm going to have a proper read soon. And in the future, I'm going to read it first, and then we're going to do a bit more involvement in each issue. But yeah, I really enjoyed this issue from what I looked at, and I think it's a really fun comic. And we do try and get it every week for Badger Jr. Really fun, really cool. And usually they do like board games in here as well. So I think that's interesting when you get involved with a board game, a comic, colouring. I think they've got it on the nose, and they're doing really well with all the different things, including in maths and English and all that sort of stuff. So I really enjoy the Beano. I think it's well worth a read. Right, thank you very much for watching, guys. Let me know if you want to see more of this style episode, and I'll see you next time. And a big shout out to my good buddy Nick Field, who helped me with the previous Beano episodes. Right, thanks very much, guys. Bye.